Before we jump into this, here's a question to get the morning started. Do trees poop? I know many of you have vast backgrounds in tree physiology, anatomy, so do trees poop? Well, I've been thinking about this a long time as well. And I'm just wondering, I keep going back to where did number 2 pencils come from? All right, that was worth the price of admission, I know.
Get the video there.
Move on now.
All right, so we're going to go over the handbook, which is this piece that we undertook more recently than the Woods in Your Backyard workbook. The handbook is geared toward the green industry professionals or the do-it-yourselfer. So it has a little bit more of the how-to in addition to the context of the why. So these two pieces do go nicely together, both the workbook and the handbook. All right. And this is not advanced. Maybe I'll turn it on. Look at that. And within the handbook is in the back, again, the checklist that we just went through. All right. You know this. It has its cover. That's great. The only thing I'll say here, again, is that it has been nice from an extension standpoint, doing educational programming. Like Jonathan said, you know, we use 3-ring binders or whatever, but it's kind of nice to have a published piece. It brings a certain amount of credibility to the program. So, and it's available along with the Woods in Your Backyard workbook. Penn State has Dave Jackson worked with the publishing arm at Penn State to get it available at a good price for us. So we do start with some of the basics, once again, with principles of succession. Jonathan mentioned this yesterday, how kind of fundamental that is, especially for those in the green industry. That's not a concept that they have in working, you know, in their field. And then using that assessment we just did, we spent some time on communicating, how to communicate this stuff to a client base. So this is stuff that the green industry isn't used to talking about, and it's also not stuff that their potential client base is used to hearing about. So, you know, what words to use and how to present that. And even the term land care rather than management perhaps is a better way to, you know, kind of approach that. Talk about the land care practices and then finally creating that land care plan. So once again, contextualizing all this stuff in succession is a place to start. You saw these pictures yesterday. These are just pictures I took, by the way, in my work area. These are not, you know, same place over time. I'm not that old. Joe is, but I'm not. Sorry, I always got to get one of those in, Joe. Uh-oh, he's putting his glasses on. So you can get these pictures in your area too, you know, and I would encourage you to. Just, and I love to talk with my A&R colleagues in Extension and say, look, that field that you talk about managing, that's nothing more than a forest waiting to happen, right? And we've got some useful tables in the book. The first table is shade tolerance. Again, ties in with succession, principles of succession. And so this book was written with kind of the mid-Atlantic in mind. So the further away you go from the mid-Atlantic, you may want to, you know, put a couple of your own addendum sheets in there if there's some species there that just don't make sense for your area or should be there that aren't there. And as we talked about outside, you know, does every woodlot contain every successional stage? Well, the smaller we get, no. And so that may be where there's an opportunity to help that landowner take a look not only at what they might be able to add to their area, especially with taking some lawn and moving that into some early successional stages or mid-successional stages, and also remembering to take a look beyond their property boundaries at the neighbors and beyond. this is right out of the book. I think this was shown yesterday as well. But basically, when it boils down to, working with succession, you can cut something, you can plant something, or you can do nothing at all. And that's a good way to sort of contextualize that for clients, and also help the green industry if you're working with them to advance this effort in your area. So, cut something, setting back succession, planting something, accelerating succession. Succession is going to happen, right? Someone's got to make a bumper sticker someday, by the way. Succession happens, right? Thank you. Or do nothing at all, which is an option. But we would want our clients to understand that is a decision that may meet the goals or may not meet the goals as well as could be done with something a little bit more active. All right, we've gone through this checklist, so we don't need to belabor that anymore. I do think it's probably a good communication tool, not just something to be used internally, but go through it yourself or the green industry professional who's on the property doing that themselves, and then going through that with the client as a way to convey the ideas. And of course, ID. I think Jonathan said, or someone said yesterday, you can spend all day on ID. And that is a great way, especially for landowners, the small acreage owners, to get them involved and engaged with their properties, to know the names of the trees, right? Hey, do you know the names of the trees you got living on your place? And the green industry, I've been surprised. You'd think they'd know more than they do, but they don't necessarily, so don't assume that, would be my encouragement to you, that they know the trees, especially when it gets into a more native, natural setting. And so, brag on my colleagues with Department of Forestry. We've got some nice books. You probably got some books in your area as well. There's good online material. Virginia Tech has a free tree ID app that's actually really good. It takes into account your latitude, longitude, and altitude, and automatically takes out a lot of what it could be. And so I'm not bragging on Virginia Tech just because it's Virginia, but it's a good free app. It's called V-Tree, V-T-RE. There's a little guide in your book as well, but here's the inside picture of that Virginia key. The dichotomous key is also another piece. So one thing that I've done with tree ID programs, you probably have too, is not to focus on, hey, this is this because of this. That really gets overwhelming really fast for anyone, for green industry folks or for homeowners. But teaching them to learn to use the key, and there are a multitude of keys, as you know, out there. So teaching them to use the key is the key. Get it? All right, so communicating your message. They need to know their client base, their interest, i.e. objectives. We always go back to that. What are your objectives? And then speaking to those without the jargon of whatever industry we're in or they're in, which can be difficult. We tried really hard with that checklist not to use jargon. And we have this listing in the book of words to avoid and words to use. So, these sort of things that we use in traditional forestry, we know what we're talking about. We don't mean it as a positive or negative or, to hurt someone's feelings or anything. It just is a term that we use. Well, sometimes, killing plants sounds really bad to some people. And in fact, I was just giving a talk last week to a tree steward group, a new tree steward group that's forming up in near me, and they're like, "Well," someone said, "Well, I like all plants," So, and it was a good reminder for me to be kind of gentle in the words that we use, so that we don't throw up unnecessary boundaries and barriers to speak towards stewardship and improving natural areas. So people, enjoy the land, sustainability, health is a big one. It's even bigger since the pandemic. The human health and our native system health, natural system health, those are great words to use.
in the green industry, building that network. You know, wherever that person fits in the green industry, they're not going to provide all of those services, but they can probably tap into many of those other service providers. So a little bit more on communicating this message. We know that it's a huge audience, and we also know that we're getting a better understanding of why these, what's different with small acreage owners versus larger acreage owners. And these attributes of why they own land are not so different. These are important for acreage owners of any size will cite these, but these are, you know, the list is probably smaller with small acreage owners. In other words, these will be on the list and not at the top of the list for larger acreage owners, but timber will be also on that list. Timber may not be on this list at all. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. Some of you probably are. This Tools for Engaging Landowners Effectively. TELI, it's a Forest Service project. And they categorized owners, this is not by acres, this is across all acres, as people who own their woods as a retreat, primarily, who own their woods for supplemental income, those who are working the land type of people, and those who are uninvolved. And most of our people in the small acreage realm are certainly going to be that retreat, whether they live there full time or not. It may not be just, you know, an occasional retreat, but that's what they're retreating every day from their work back home, right? And so these amenity resources, the scenery, the trails, privacy, Jonathan mentioned yesterday about even just access. Those trails are and it doesn't take much, you know, just getting through that edge into the woods. So I think there is a lot of opportunity there for green industry to provide some of those simple services. But it does require management, I guess, is what we say here. You know, yes, there's a intrinsic scenery value. It's green, right? But it might be able to be better. Even chosen tree management can help improve that scenery for certain fall color or spring flowers. I love this slide. It's more fun to mow with Rio. Mow is less. You know what I'm saying? All right. So converting that lawn to a more natural area, opportunity there. And again, not talking about balled and burlapped or containerized trees. And so that's where the green industry may not even know about one-year-old seedlings available from, you know, state-run nurseries or whatnot. Or maybe it's stopping mowing and burning an area. I've done that on the property where I live. Got about an acre in 3 different patches. Total's about an acre. And I just don't mow it through the year, and then right now I burn it. And then, and it's fescue, so it's not great, but it's better than mowing it. And it's fun to burn it too. And then there are practices to enhance that woodland health. So again, this is in the book, and for the do-it-yourself or the green industry, creating these new areas, accelerating succession. And the big trick here with just stopping mowing and managing that natural succession would be what? Or invasives, exactly. So this is not this is intensive management still. And so the green industry professional who's maybe working with this client, they're going to need to be selling their services for years to come to manage the invasives. In other words, to keep the health as good and strong as it can be. Lots of opportunities with old fields, privacy screens to take advantage of what's already there and make it a little bit better. The shelters or some way to protect the trees from the deer may be necessary, probably will be necessary. And educating the clients, whoever they are, on different types of seedlings that are available. what we're talking about with spacing and planting methodology, controlling competition. If it's in turf, then controlling that turf competition is going to be important to getting those established. I mentioned this yesterday already, but we do need to keep on coming back with whatever audience we're working with, the green industry or the small acreage, that this is about a system, not about landscaping and putting one thing in or two things in to make things look different. That competing vegetation, again, herbicides is a topic that can be met with strong feelings. There's some good literature out there, some good material that can help with that. We address it in the book, but I would say that one of the things that I do, and this might be a good discussion to have, is how do you have those conversations with folks who are like, no, I don't want any herbicides. And that's usually coming from a place of not understanding how herbicides are applied in a forestry setting. They're thinking about horticulture or agriculture, where it's annual, where it's broadcast, where it's a lot of volume, and that's just not the case in our natural settings, right? We're talking about spot treatments. We're talking about occasional, it's not every year, over broad areas. And we're also talking about just a handful of different herbicide types. And we have some options there too with regard to their toxicity and such. All right. We've got to know the invasives, and that's where probably a decent amount of education can happen from us to these audiences, especially the green industry, and knowing what those invasives are. This county ordinances also reminds me of HOAs, a great opportunity for this kind of stuff in homeowner association areas, if it's allowed. If it's not allowed, then maybe there's opportunity still there for education to provide some opportunity for improving areas. And so being aware of ordinances, HOA limitations, but also looking for opportunities to potentially change those. All right, moving through some of these that we've already touched on. The meadow thing, the flower field and grass field is really appealing to a lot of people, and a great way to improve an area. It doesn't necessarily have to be forest, right? So this is a great way to soften that edge leading up to a more later successional stages. But this requires more management. So that's good. From a green industry perspective, they're going to need to get in there every year or every couple of years and do some sort of management to keep that at that stage, whether that's burning, mowing, disking, controlling the woody invasives with the proper herbicides. So yeah, again, mowing once a year or every few years. And I think there's a possibility. I mean, to me, this looks like a HOA sort of place. But this can look nice, and so maybe having a demonstration area where you can bring HOA type people, or even just get permission from an HOA. Say, well, can we just try something, and then decide. Once you see it, make a decision based on a little bit more information, because it can look real nice. Good information in the book about actually how to do this, and there may be some cost share programs available. In Virginia, we've got one with DCR. Yes, with DCR, that's for small acreage owners. To even from the scale of a rain garden on up to something where you're removing significant amount of yard. Any other states have anything like that for small acreage?
For Pennsylvania, we just started a lawn conversion program.
Excellent. That's awesome.
For meadow or for tree planting.
Okay, good. I think Maryland has something, right?
Yeah, we brought back the lawn to Woodland program a couple of years ago.
Sweet,
as a
yeah.
pilot, so we should be launching that. But otherwise, the Healthy Forest, Healthy Waters program
Okay.
has been pretty flexible for even small acreages.
Cool.
Montgomery County has a Rainscapes program for a variety of different implementations that
All right.
farmers do. And I know DC has a similar program.
Okay. Yeah, so good. Maybe something to check into in your state if you're not sure. And maybe someone, if you're in the right place or know the right people, to have that conversation. Because there's an opportunity there. And a little bit of money can go a long way with helping people like, okay, yeah, I'll give that a try if I've got a little bit of support, right? All right, I keep getting ahead of myself. Cost share assistance. All right, Chapter 4 moves into the actual land care practices where the how-to, everything from pruning to trails and invasive plants, riparian buffers, and applying herbicides. So the riparian buffers, obviously a key area to focus in on first if that's in play. The chosen tree management, we introduced this yesterday as well. And this is a way to accelerate stand development as well. You know, there's only going to be a certain number of trees in that stand fewer trees as that stand matures. And so by implementing chosen tree management, you get to choose which trees are there or have more of an influence on choosing on which trees are going to be there. And then we talked about this free to grow on 3 to 4 sides, so looking at this as a piece of pie and releasing those trees. Some trees, as you know, are going to react to that differently than other species. If you release it on too many sides, then you get that epicormic sprouting, which is a stress response. So approaching that a little bit slowly is probably good advice. Here we're not taking our own advice, we use the word killed. So marking those trees, paint or flagging, probably flagging in a situation like this that can be removed easily. Or if someone wants to paint those trees and actually, and this would be an idea for you setting up a demonstration area, maybe on a state forest or something like that, doing a chosen tree management demo, painting those trees, getting the diameter, and seeing the difference in the response rate that those have versus ones that were not released. And they don't necessarily have to be cut down, they can just be girdled. Some trees respond to girdling as a mechanical release, others don't. Some just have to have herbicide applied if you want to leave them as a snag. All kinds of other habitat elements as well, you know, rocks, the snags that Julie's talked a lot about, your mast trees, and it's both hard mast, soft mast, bushes, those sort of things. Great opportunity with some of these bushes and those that softening that edge for some soft mast and hard mast, hazelnut, so on. Brush piles, that's also, so I'm thinking about an arborist, you know, takes down a tree and instead of hauling all that brush off-site, which is a cost to them, selling a brush pile. Taking that brush and building a good brush pile with the big stuff on the bottom, the small stuff on top, you know, decent size, and providing that as an additional service to that client. Again, the hard edge, soft edge. I always talk about the hard edge is like when it's 100 degrees outside and you walk into the freezer section of the grocery store. It's like, whoa, you know, it's shocking. It's better to take the long way to the freezer section and acclimate to that. So we want to have a soft edge wherever possible. And anywhere where there's yard and trees, there's almost, yard and forest, there's almost always an opportunity to create that soft edge. Now that picture that I showed early on yesterday of my backyard with my little girl swinging, there was no room for a soft edge there. So to actually remove my yard and create a soft edge, I would have had to drop trees and create that soft edge in the woods, right? So you can create that soft edge by planting, by taking some lawn, which if you've got room, that's probably better, or you can create that soft edge by pushing the forest back. You saw this picture yesterday. Deer got to be addressed somehow in many of our situations, not all of our situations. But whether that's individual tree tubes, protecting new plantings, or fence, or dogs, or something to help. It's amazing. We've got a area in Virginia, and actually not far from here, but with the Smithsonian, they have a 1 hectare plot that had a fence put up like 30 years ago to keep deer out. And that's the only thing that's been done, is deer have been kept out. And inside the fence, there's all kinds of spring ephemerals, there's diversity, there's not very many invasives. Outside the fence, it's everything on the other side of every coin, invasives and everything else. The only difference was deer. That was an eye-opener to me. Again, trails, and there's some science to this. I don't know what it is. I know it's out there though. But some things like not real straight, make a meandering, that keeps interest. Pick some places where people can actually stop and sit down and look at something. So depending on the size of the property and how they want to access those trails. Is this by foot? Is this ATV? Is it by small SUV? Putting all those pieces together, I think that could be a great service sold to individuals. If you've got wet areas, how are you going to access those? Because that can be really neat to look at and be able to monitor. If you've got slopes, then how are we going to put that trail in so that it's not, not constantly rolling your ankles and also not contributing to erosion. Here's also another way to kind of address that whole chemical thing, that integrated vegetation management, a subset of IPM, integrated pest management, in this case, bad plants being the pest. We got our cultural controls, mechanical controls, biological and chemical. And so this is a way to help sort of sell that chemical piece, which is the piece that sometimes needs some education in selling. The others are more readily embraced. This herbicide piece, you certainly need to have the right kind of credentials to be able to apply these. Even glyphosate, if you're applying it, at least in Virginia, if you're applying it as a for hire situation, you've got to have a license. Is that true in the other states too, I think? So you can do it on, the homeowner can do it on their own property, these unrestricted pesticides, no problem without a license. But for a professional who's getting paid, for hire sort of situation, then they've got to follow the state laws. All right. This is the land care plan, and so this again can be sold as a service to that client by the green industry. It's available to be typed up and presented as a nice looking plan, but a green industry person might go ahead and take the elements of this and put it in their own package. Sure, that's great, that's fine. There's an example in the book. And so on. So I would encourage you to think, and maybe us together, as what sort of training certifications would be the ideal interface service provider have. In Virginia, I think they would be a certified arborist, they'd be a certified nursery landscape professional, they would probably be have gone through the Sharp Logger program, and in all these places they're going to be making connections with others who can do pieces that they can't do. Perhaps they're a member of SAF. In Maryland, the Master Logger program. So this gets to be a lot, and not everyone's going to have all of these, but I think that there's some opportunities, say with someone in the green industry, a nursery or landscape person, or an arborist. Anyone can go through the Sharp Logger program in Virginia and make those connections. There's not even going to be a cost in that case for them other than their time. And that's that.
So you've learned about the book, and Adam went through that in detail. So what we want to do now here is kind of transition to how we took that material and presented it out to the green industry professionals. So the trainings that we offered to try to get these folks up to speed on what was in the book. And so think about what our goal is here now. So we've trained all these people through the Woods in Your Backyard materials, all these small acreage owners out here. We don't have service providers for them. And so now we created this material and these trainings so that we can get this material in their hands and get them working with these small acreage providers. And so this is what we called it, the Natural Area Management Webinar Series. We hosted a number of these. In fact, we're finishing up the third one tomorrow, actually. And so, you know, this is kind of the tagline that we talked about here. Grow your business by providing natural area management services to small acreage clients. And so that's really the focus to the green industry. These are the webinars that we offered, and we bit off a lot, to be honest with you. You know, we initially opened it up in the fall of 2020 when the material was originally published. We did this 4-part series that really just focused on the book. And then we got into an advanced one, which I'll go into a little more. And then this year we're doing a kind of a unique way to present a property at a case level study. But we're really focusing on these folks, you know, to be able to teach them how to expand their services to include, you know, this creating and enhancing natural areas. And that's the term we use, natural areas, when we're talking about woodlands or meadows or whatever it might be. And so this was the original series that we did, so we kicked it off and strictly covered the material in the book this time and really showed them what was in there. They all received the book with their registration fee. So potential market for land care services and small acreage properties, having them grow their businesses. They all received the Woodland Health Practice Handbook and the assessment, and they were shown how to use all that material. We did 4 sessions in the evenings there, 7 to 8:30 p.m., which you'll see we even modified that as we went on. They were just 1-hour presentations with 30-minute Q&A sessions. We charged $35 and included the book, and they could get the original Woods in Your Backyard book as well if they chose to with their registration, so they could get both if they wanted them. This was just a flyer that we had created for that and how we marketed that out, but it was all done through, you know, the various systems. It was all through the partnership. So Maryland had their own separate registration, Virginia had their own separate registration, and Pennsylvania had their own registration as well. So it was kind of complicated the way we worked it with our partners, but all in all, they all got on the same Zoom, and all in all, it worked well. Then we moved into this advanced series, because what we found after they went through the book and really learned that material, through our evaluations again, there was a lot of information that they really wanted to learn more about. And so we really honed in on some of those topics and really gave them some detailed information on those things. And so how we divided that up was we took 1 week and we offered 2 seminars on each week that really focused in on various topics. And so we had a wildlife week, we had a tree planting and water week, we had a woodland management week, and we had a vegetation management week, and really honed in on those topics so that they could really learn in detail how to implement some of those practices into their business. So that was 8 sessions that we offered, Tuesdays and Thursdays for 4 weeks straight, just in the evenings again. So we figure we're catering to this audience that's not available during the daytime, and that was the reason for the evening sessions there. This one was $65. The book was optional if they wanted to buy that, and they got a reduced price if they didn't want the book, because a lot of these we figured were repeat customers coming back. And again, they could get the Woods in Your Backyard book for extra. This was the flyer, so you can see how we created here. So here's the Wildlife Week and the sessions that we offered here: creating and enhancing wildlife habitat, dealing with uninvited guests, so addressing wildlife conflicts. And so one of the things we felt like they needed to understand was if you build it, they will come whether they're invited or not. And so you might be attracting visitors that you didn't really want to have on your property, and how you might have to contend with some of those things. And so the tree planting and water week was installing buffers, maintaining tree plantings, the woodland management, applying woodland health practice to different successional stages, and then the harvesting on single and multiple properties. And then this one here on the vegetation we did using herbicides and then non-herbicide control. So we had 2 separate sessions that covered those topics in detail. So that's how we offered the more detailed, the more intensive training to really get folks up to speed. And then this is the one that we're doing now. So we'll wrap this up tomorrow. This is just 3 sessions, but what we did was we used kind of the examples that you see in the back of the book where we write some plans for properties and we draw the maps and so forth. So we actually took an example property and we detailed what was on it. We detailed what the landowner's objectives were. And we really walked through the whole thing. So when we use the assessment, we write a management plan for the property and show them how to do that. And then we go through what were the red checks on the assessment and kind of show them how we would actually implement practices on this particular property. And so we got smart finally here and said we're going to stop taking our evenings and we're offering this during the day. But it's 3 sessions. So this one we do 2 hours on Thursdays, 2 to 4, where we offer the two presentations and then go into Q&A essentially. $35 or $15 without the book, so pretty good deal really for that training. And then again, you could still get the Woods in Your Backyard book. And so here's where the topics that we covered. So developing a Woods in Your Backyard land care plan, included the assessment, included some introductory information that Jonathan and Adam did to kind of give them the background and what really we were trying to do with this. But then we moved into some of the practices that were highlighted from the assessment. So how to improve tree health. So we covered chosen tree management and thinning trees, things like that. And Luke covered managing, deer problems, high deer impact on the property is one of the things that was noted in the assessment. So what are some of the things you might do to recognize that and then implement some practices to try to mitigate it. And then what we're doing tomorrow is converting lawns to natural areas, so tree plantings and meadow establishment. And then I'll be talking about the invasive plant control stuff. And so those are really detailed and really focused just on that property, what the problems that we saw on the property were and how we might address them. And so this is actually the property that I drew for our case study property. And so it has a lot of mowed lawn over here. It's only 8 acres, but this is all mowed lawn, so all on the creek here, it's being mowed on both sides. They have a trail around the property, but they have young woods over here, mature woods down here. They have an old pasture that's just grown up over here, but nothing that they've planted on it. It's being invaded with invasive plants, et cetera. So we kind of give them this whole scenario with the case study. So that's what the landowner has. Here's their goals and objectives for the property. So we just made all this up basically so that we could cover some of this material with them. I'll just give you a real quick here what we did. This is just for the first 2 trainings that we offered, so the introductory and the advanced webinars. So in 20 and 21, we had 361 registrants across multiple states actually. Increased understanding of subject area, so that was pretty significant really. Increased confidence, that was one of the things that we really saw was they really felt like they increased their confidence in be able to actually provide these services. 73% really were, at the level that they felt like they could begin to offer some of these practices. And more likely to incorporate these services into their businesses. We had 12 different states represented there, 49%, very likely, or absolutely will incorporate them into their businesses. These were some of the services they said that they would be willing to provide too. So tree planting, wildlife habitat enhancement, invasive plant control, plan development, lawn conversion, improving privacy, aesthetics, things like that. So those were some of the top ones that they indicated. Not a great response here as far as the numbers, but we did see that some really indicated that they expected to see increased profitability from the implementation of these practices as well. 60% expected to have it increase by more than $5,000 a year. And so that's all I have on that. And I think if we can, yeah, Agnes, did you have a comment?
I don't know, maybe I missed it while I was eating back here. Did you talk about how we offered credits?
We're going to talk about that in the panel, actually. Julianne's going to cover that. Yep. So if Adam and Julianne, if you guys want to come on up, we'll do our Q&A with everybody here.
Okay, addressing credits. In southeast Pennsylvania, as you can imagine, there are a lot of people looking for credits. Feedback we had gotten was they are willing to pay up to $200 a credit, and they're accustomed to paying that. And that's landscape architect. There is one Pennsylvania Planners Association, or just a Planners Association overall. And that's an interesting one. We haven't technically gone for that yet, but we could. And it makes the most sense to partner with a planning organization through your county, or in some cases there's nonprofit planning organizations, because it's a steep price to pay initially to become a member to offer those credits. Okay, so we do have access through that through Extension, Penn State Extension, but we haven't gone that route yet. So that's something to think about, because there's a shortage of those credits. And those are folks that landscape architects and planners don't really have this kind of experience, and it could easily be learned. And then all the green industry groups have been wonderful. So you might have just traditionally thought, oh, well, Society of American Foresters and things like that, the natural resource type, that's a no-brainer. But the green industry ones are like International Society of Arboriculture. Sometimes you have a landscape and nursery association, or various permutations of that. There are even ones that are popping up that at request we will give them a certificate to apply, but these ones are things like natural areas, organic oriented. Sometimes we just find out about them through the requests. What we have done lately, I did the first one. Yeah. Landscape architects are the ones that are willing to pay a lot. Yeah.
Which is an interesting audience, because we've had a number of them go through not only this one, but Woods in Your Backyard as well, that are really interested in learning and incorporating some of these things into their design. So it's kind of neat to see.
As one of my friends has said, being a landscape architect, he says, we don't get any of this. He says, you think we work with plants? No, it's not landscape, it's space. We design space. So any kind of education, especially on natural resources base, attracts them quite a bit, because a lot of them have that bent anyways. Lately, because we found it was quite troublesome to track sometimes those folks that get what credits, we've started issuing certificates. So it's a certificate of attendance. And since we've had Zoom reports, we can see how long the people have been there and whether they truly attended. And so I have actually my secretary, bless her, going through all those lists. We found out the first time that we goofed a little bit, because there'd be people on the Zoom report, there are how many Chris's? Just Chris. There was the forester. There was no name. So now Dave has set up a Qualtrics so that they put in their number that they need the credit for.
Their name, their email address.
Yeah.
And we put it right in the chat at the end. So we know they're on the duration. If they don't get it, they don't get it. So they're there at the end. They click the link, opens up on their browser, they fill it out, and it goes right into Qualtrics, and we give it a nice summary of what they want. And then that's a lot easier for Julianne's secretary.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how we're doing
Yeah,
it.
especially when we have 100-some people.
The first one, we didn't do it that way, and it really was a nightmare. We had a lot of things that we got pre-approvals for, and I was sorting names out and sending sheets into the entities. I wouldn't advise it. It really was kind of a nightmare. So this kind of puts the onus on them. Here's your certificate. We know you were there. Do with it what you will.
So y'all get like the CFPs and the ISA credits approved ahead of time, but then you put it back on the attendee to submit for their credits.
So the big ones like that, we did. We actually would submit it, and we would know it was approved so we can market it, that it will offer those credits. But we hope that the certificate suffices, that they can just send that in, yeah.
We've done it both ways, to
Yeah,
be clear.
we did, yeah.
The other way is just so much work.
Yeah.
With the virtual delivery, it gets really complicated. You know, in person, it's not so difficult, but yeah. And a lot of people don't know they can self-submit, but they just need to be told they can. Go do it.
Which I wanted to mention, thanks to Scott, who is our ISA CEU provider, there are CEUs from ISA for this training, which the sheet is floating around somewhere, okay?
Thanks, Scott. You just have to sign us in on the e-sheet otherwise, you know.
Any other questions? I think Luke had a question back there.
Yeah, this is kind of backing up way back, but I'm curious, I think maybe you said you got mentioned yesterday, but I'm curious to hear how you guys identified that the providers, like the service providers, were an important audience to provide this kind of programming to. How did you come up with that whole idea?
You know, I can start anyway. Early on, when we started doing these workshops for the small acreage owners, they're like, "Whoa, oh, this is really great. Who can do it?"
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally how we. Jonathan, if you're, I don't know if you're, I think it was your same discovery. You know, we were like, "Oh my gosh, these people want to pay someone to do this." And so Jonathan did a survey with foresters and green industry, and I tried to get some of that data too. So yeah, it was very organic, and then it was a matter of for years we talked at various venues, you know, to green industry about this, and seemed to be enough traction to go ahead and put this piece of it together.
I mean, I'll say that there's a little piece of me that is concerned that those that have gone through a 4-year forestry program might be a little upset, I'll say, I don't know if that's the right word, that we're teaching a landscaper to do forestry work, to be in the woods and doing chosen tree management or a thinning or whatever it might be. But the fact of the matter is, you know, there's not really service providers that are forestry consultants that want to work on an 8-acre property, you know, in a 3-acre woodlot or whatever this landowner might have. And so we had to come up with something. And there's a lot more of those folks out there than there are forestry consultants that, you know, they have crews that are doing work. So I think there's opportunities here. We just need to train them and show them that there are these opportunities.
A big difference that we found between kind of the who could provide this. Yeah, a consultant could do this, but a consultant and a logger is used to getting paid based on what value is being removed, and there's a percentage or whatever, you know. Whereas the green industry is used to charging a fee, and this is much more along the lines of charging a fee. There may be an opportunity to reduce costs or whatever on that other side, but
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it's important too. I think I've always made the distinction with folks that we're not trying to make them the loggers, because in fact, being a logger requires different certification and much lower higher liability that they're not even at that level, so equipment. So always make the point that we're not trying to teach you to be loggers. That's a whole different profession. But
Yeah.
I think as far as we go is really chosen. That's why we kind of stopped at chosen tree management. where
Yeah.
You're favoring individual trees for a number of reasons, or filling lines. It's not logging.
Good question, Luke. Thank you for that. Thank you.
And credits were only, those continuing education credits were only offered at the live sessions, because we have these on the the website, the Maryland website.
Yeah, good point, Agnes. So if anybody wants to go and look at any of these, Andrew converts them all to YouTube videos, all the recordings, and they're all posted on the Maryland Woodlands site. Is that what it's called, Jonathan? Maryland Extension Woodlands?
Extension.umd.edu/Woodland, and if you put a little link right on the top, what's in your backyard, now take you to all the webinars that we've had, a bunch of other things.
So if you have lots of spare time, you can listen to hours and hours of us yammering on.
Binge listening, yes, that's a trend.
Yeah, you can skip me if you want to. Just I don't want to hear that guy.
The beauty of having those videos is we've not gotten a request for CEUs. And I wanted to mention too that contacting those organizations meant that they often would put out the notice to their members, and we would get marketing that way, in a sense, sometimes even partnerships.
Have you worked at all with the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals Program as an
We
audience?
did, yep.
Yes.
Repeat that so it's recorded.
So the question is, have we worked with the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals Organization? And yes, because that's a certification program too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there may be something, I don't know, like that in the Carolinas too, coastal, I don't know. But at any rate, yeah, there's probably other local, may be other local things like that too in your area.
I just wanted to make a comment from the Maryland folks that last year, the state of Maryland passed a law that prohibits HOAs from requiring turf as part of landscaping. Yeah, so it prohibits them from banning native landscaping and just xeriscaping and rain gardens and that kind of thing.
Wow.
Go Maryland.
A couple $100,000 fight between this landowner and her HOA, and then there was a law passed about it.
Wow.
Oh, that's good news.
Fascinating.
Interesting case
I'll
study.
mention one other thing, and that is about county weed ordinance. Because I ran into this when we first started working with this. Most counties have a weed ordinance. So when you really think about it, okay, if you have a forest, nobody has any problem. If you have a lawn, you have nobody problem. But it's getting from the lawn above 18 inches, or whatever it is, to the weed ordinance, to something that's tall enough to resemble a natural area, because neighbors will complain. So, and I was involved in a case in Washington County where that was the case. And one of the solutions was that if a person is doing natural area management on their property, and they're concerned about, some reference to their neighbors, is to have a strip of 10 foot wide or something that they actually mow along their property line. If their neighbor is, upset about the natural area, but the weed ordinance is no small matter. When you start getting into residential areas, it requires some education, and those weed ordinances can be changed. There's models and templates out there, but it's no small issue in some places.
As a recommendation, I would have you look into Joan Nassour, Nassour, and she's a landscape architect that worked on people's perceptions on wildness, and she has a fascinating article, 7 Cues for Care. Because as long as it looks cared for, people will understand and be more willing to tolerate it.
Put up a sign, yeah.
What was her name again, sorry?
Joan Nassour, Nassour, out of University of Minnesota, but it's possible she's retired now.
She had,
7
how long
Cues
ago
for
that was
Care.
that You had her over here.
Yeah. She was my most expensive speaker ever.
You had a crowd that paid for it, though, You
Yeah.
probably made money on that even so.
No comment.
I don't know how much time we have left, but what Dave just presented, obviously was a lot of work. But I hope that you're also hearing some baby steps kind of into this with just giving talks that, opportunities that may present themselves, or that you try to
infiltrate, so to speak, at conferences, workshops, or your own existing programs, perhaps. So don't be overwhelmed. And the partnership thing's been great. I routinely advertise the online workshop that Maryland does for Virginia. Of course, we're neighbors, so that works out nicely. Penn State does all the webinar stuff, so that's great. We advertise that too. Don't
We
need
trade
to.
speakers,
Yeah.
And I think, to Adam's point, one of the baby steps is the presentation. Like Jonathan, I know you've built a PowerPoint around just introducing this topic to the green industry, so you can have one presentation even at a conference on it.
Yeah, in fact, I'll post that, I'll share that.
Yeah.
And then we'll give you that Google link to where all these, all our program announcements, some evaluations from each of the states and stuff.
And in 9 days, you'll be available as a high overpaid speaker, right?
You can hire him to come to your conference. Do you have a question back there?
Can I just ask, okay, you've got these people trained up, then do you provide a listing to people that you?
Great lead-in. It's coming.
Oh, wait, okay.
Yeah, we have that covered, actually. Well, they have it covered.
So on our website, the same website where the webinars are posted, Andrew and I, we developed a service directory. So people can self-populate, or they send in a form, because we can't let them self-populate. But I think there's maybe like about 10 or 12 people or something like that. I think we got moving on.
Okay, so I'm
Let's
not.
bring up another Boilermaker.
Hey!
Boiler up.
Boiler up.
Yeah, so, so as a part of these webinar series, in Maryland, we kind of developed this service directory, but in fact, Virginia's been on this for a number of years in partnering with an urban forest council, I believe. And Joe's going to talk about that in terms of what they've done to develop service providers. I think they're much further along, but again, once you get this directory too, then you have to let people know you have it too, and that's always part of the gamble, right?
Exactly.
Okay. This Joe Lehnen is it Lehnen or Lehnen?
Lehnen.
Lehnen. I always pronounce that wrong.
That's okay. Just call me whatever. It doesn't matter.
Virginia Department of Forest.
Can we do something with the lights?
Yes.
Okay. Much better. Okay, I am Joe Lehnen with Virginia Department of Forestry. I'm a forest utilization and marketing specialist. Prior to that, I was in the field for a very long time. And so I've got a lot of field background, a lot of dealing with small landowners. And so, I feel the pain that resource professionals go through, when they have small properties, without a doubt. We used to get calls, we still get calls all the time. Hey, I've got 10 trees out in back, or I got 20 trees out in back, or I've got an acre, or I've got 2 acres, and I would really like somebody to come cut my trees. Sorry, there's really nobody to do that. You know the drill. So, we've repeated that time and time again. We welcome the fact when Jonathan and the team came up with this idea of these small service providers, because that is what we were striving for in Virginia too. So why do we recruit these green industry, businesses? Well, most of them have at least a little bit of knowledge of natural resources. They're not necessarily just all lawnmowers, or weed eaters. They do have some, even just personally, maybe not as a business, but personally, they've got a little bit of an idea about natural resources. They may be, I shouldn't say most, but may be familiar, with pesticide use, which is of course part of all this. And good thing is most have equipment and they know how to run the equipment. This is probably one of the most universal pieces of equipment, that you could ever have. The skid steer has become, the premier equipment for these small properties. This has a forestry mulcher on front, which can build trails. It can take care of invasive species. I've seen them with harvesting shears on them, especially the bigger skid steers. you name it, you know, these things can do it. They're small, they're mobile, and they're not, you know, incredibly, horribly expensive. A lot of green industries have these for loading mulch, moving things around. I see a tree company going from Waynesboro over to Charlottesville all the time, and there's usually one of these, you know, on there somewhere on the trailer as they're going back and forth up and down the interstate. This is an incredibly wonderful piece of equipment. In Virginia, like, you know, the other states that are represented here, we've got about 62% forest. And so, you know, that of course means just a lot of opportunity, you know, for people to expand into these small property managements. Here's the nugget of knowledge. In Virginia, 70% of the woodland owners own 1 to 10 acres. Now think about that for a minute. That doesn't include the folks out there that own less than 1 acre who want to do something. And you might think, oh, you know, less than 1 acre, what do they want to do? They may want to have a little bit of wildlife habitat. It may be connected to 200 other neighbors who have a ½ an acre also. They might want to do a trail. They may want to do invasive species control. Don't discount the small properties, because collectively they can be a huge opportunity for green industry professionals. Here's a little urban wood nugget of knowledge. There's about 130 million acres of urban forest across the United States. More wood is removed from our urban areas than all the national forests combined. And you might say, well, I don't see that many trees dying, you know, in the urban forest. It's not necessarily just trees dying. Think of all the road projects. Think of the ramadas. Think of the shopping centers. Think of the food places where all those trees get either bulldozed and ground up or, you know, whatever. So there is a lot of wood that comes out of the urban areas. You know, sadly, this can sometimes be the final resting place. 3 to 4 billion board feet of urban wood go to the landfills or the tub grinders every year. And this, you know, this up here looks like what you might call, you know, woody biomass, but this is logs back in here that could be used for a higher and better use. This can't be our future. I know that looks absolutely goofy and staged, but if you look up here, the chips are flying, okay? You know, we don't want this for our trees. And you might think, yeah, but that tree is crooked, you know, it's got limbs on it. If you're at all familiar, you know, with local or urban wood businesses, you will know that they use trees exactly like this. Just, am I moving around too much? I just want to, is that okay? Okay, all right. He's back there. Sorry, I'll try to stay in one place. Anyway, local urban wood businesses use trees like this, and very creative types of pieces of furniture and wood come out of trees that you would never imagine. Some of the most beautiful wood that I've seen comes out of box elder. Box elder, you know, and as, you know, commercial foresters, you know, would tell you, box elder? Really? You know, but it's not oak, it's not ash, you know, no. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Okay, so Virginia identified the problem. We were able to get some funding from the U.S. Forest Service back in about 2015. When we started all this, it really didn't get going until about 2017. There we go. One thing that we found in Virginia is that there was a need to bring the pieces together. The owners, the arborists, the crafters, the sawyers, the retailers, and the organizers. We are kind of the organizers, okay? If you can think of this, before we started bringing them together, they were like a puzzle that, you know, you set out at a table. You know, you kind of spread it all out. You try to make it in that border first, you know, all that. But unless you start doing it, the puzzle just sits there. And that's what was happening, is the puzzle pieces were there. But, you know, Jonathan's team, what we were doing in Virginia, we wanted to start bringing them together. Kind of a case in point, you know, back to what the panel was talking about, you know, we don't necessarily, you know, expect, the green industry folks to be loggers, so to speak. But there are tree care people out there that if trees have to come down, there can be a coalition of services. In other words, we don't necessarily expect everybody to do everything or every company to do everything on a given piece of land. The landowner may have to shop around. He may have to go to a tree care service, to take down 10 trees. However, for the land management, he may be relying on the green industry in order for that to happen also. We developed an urban and small woodlot forestry business directory. We have 175 businesses. Now you got to realize we've been doing this since 2017, so we've been able to accumulate businesses. Last year it grew at about 19, I think. I just took one out yesterday because I talked to the guy and he decided to retire. So when something happens, you got to take them out. We tried to give it a very easy name, vaurbanwoodhelp.org. Disclaimer, if you go there, you'll find that the Google Maps are not working right now. We're working on that. We're trying to get that straightened out. In Maryland, like Jonathan was saying, they have a natural area management services business directory. Andrew has done a great job building this. They got about 15 businesses in there. And we try to help Andrew when we hear of a business that services Maryland or that might be in Maryland. We send him the lead, and then Andrew follows up on it. When you're talking about directory development, I have what I call the 3 R's: recruiting, retention, and reviewing. Recruiting happens a lot through these Woods in Your Backyard and NAMS workshops. Like Jonathan was saying, we reached out to these folks, the participants, and we said, okay, you've gone through this, how do you think you're going to implement? What services do you think you might want to add? So we're recruiting, and trying to get them interested and then listed in these directories. Word of mouth among your clients, among your landowners is great. I got a guy. Everybody's got I got a guy that takes down trees. I got a guy with a mulcher on the front of that skid steer. I got a guy who knows a lot about herbicides. Those I got a guys, are important. And they're leads, that can be followed up on. Social media, Instagram and Facebook is an incredible recruiting tool. I can't tell you how many times this pops up in my Instagram feed. Okay, algorithms. The algorithms. Everybody thinks, oh, there's an algorithm, they're following me. It can be a good thing. Once I started, showing interest in urban wood businesses, all of a sudden, I kept getting fed. Urban wood, urban wood, urban wood. And that's great because it takes me to leads of urban wood businesses all across the country. And I've got friends, who have positions similar to me, who are trying to build directories, who want, who can use this information. This guy was from Georgia, and lo and behold, when I kind of hovered down here, his website picked up. And so I was able, to forward this to my contact down in Georgia and say, hey, have you heard of this guy? You might want to include him in his directory. And then he takes it from there. So this is a great way, to find out businesses that you may not know about that you can reach out to for a directory. Collaboration is also very important for service provider recruitment. In Virginia, and hopefully other places too, urban wood, urban and community forestry, forest health, we are talking all the time. And we are working on projects together all the time. I'm meeting with them tomorrow on what potentially is a new project that will involve all of us. This is an incredible, coalition that can be developed anywhere that will really bolster the program of service providers and urban wood, in any state. Not sure why that happens. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's talk about retention. Touches are important for retention. A phone call. I had to call the other guy, hey, you know, can you do this demonstration? No, I'm out of business now. Okay, thank you. Emails, contact via social media, visits. About once every other month, I try to pick an area in Virginia, pick a couple businesses. Hey, I'd like to come visit you, you know, see what you got going on, see what's brand new, blah, blah, blah. Just go by and see him. Use a platform to reach out to him. We use Constant Contact. Some people use MailChimp. But that platform enables you to talk to a wide audience, you know, in a very easy way in a very short period of time. Retention is also about, you know, referrals. Are they getting referrals? Music to my ears when I hear, you know, this guy came to me the other day and he found me in your directory. Man, that is just icing on the cake. You know, icing on the cake. And of course, outreach. We do an e-newsletter in Virginia, and some other states do also. I know North Carolina does with their Urban Wood folks. It's a one-pager, and I try to limit the text. But the Virginia Urban Wood Group, it comes out every other month. I can't put it together every month. It would just drive me crazy. So about every other month, you know, we have an e-newsletter. I try to talk about training opportunities and CEUs, like the drying hardwood lumber, Penn State Extension, natural area management services. The last one, like they were saying, is today. So these give them training opportunities to earn CEUs. And then I also try to pick a theme, you know, for a given newsletter. This one, it was all about boards, back to the basics, talking about sawmilling. And I try to pick maybe 2 to 3 companies to feature. And I tell them, short text, 4 to 5 sentences, no more than that. Send me some pictures, and then put a link to their business. That's it. You know, we're not writing a magazine, we're writing an e-newsletter. And then that way people can, you know, follow, if they want to find out more about Rich Corp up there in Percival, Virginia, then have at it. Retention, of course, and they've already talked about this, is training opportunities. I would say, you know, for the green industry, ISA and pesticide research, you know, are probably the 2 top ones that they are most interested in. And again, CEUs are relatively, you know, they're easy to come by with the webinars. I mean, you know, they only may get 1 or they may get 2, but it all builds up. You know, like Dave was saying, I mean, in one session, you know, we offered like a series of 8. You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, at the end of it, they have 8 credits. Know your service providers. Kind of know their time constraints. Are they going to be able to, you know, have the crew sit in there or have the bosses sit in there in the afternoons? Or, you know, even though we don't like it, maybe it's going to have to be in the evenings. And involve them in demos and workshops. I'm calling my people, you know, quite a bit, saying, you know, I've got a school program and they want, you know, a portable sawmill demonstration. Can you come over and do it for us? Or like at Mac ISA, you know, we just got notice that we're going to have an urban wood section at Mac ISA down in Richmond. I'm going to bring in probably at least 2 of the people in the directory, you know, to put on a demonstration or to show what they do. That gets them involved and that keeps them engaged.
When is that?
October 4, 5, somewhere along that way.
That'd be great.
Yeah, just look at the Mac ISA website. Okay, directory maintenance, again, very, very important. You know, if people go, the second thing is most important, 2 clicks away from forever gone. If they're going to your directory and they're clicking on this and they're pursuing the business and they find out, you know, I'm sorry, we're out of business, or they don't get any response to their email. I mean, it's not our fault, you know, but say their email bounces back to them. You got to maintain the directory, and you got to actively maintain the directory. You know, I try to do a little bit I don't want to say every week, but about every other week. If I find, that a business is not in business or has gone out of business or has shifted their focus, then we either update the directory or they come out of the directory. One thing that I have learned that's really helpful, on your e-newsletters in Constant Contact, you can look at the Qualtrics. You can look at the feedback. You can see the bounces, okay? You can see what emails are bouncing or once or twice or whatever. Once or twice is no big deal. If it gets 3 times, then you probably better reach out to the business and see, what's going on here. Why are we keep getting bounce backs on the newsletter going out? Sometimes it's kind of screwy software, where the software will, when you send out something to Constant Contact, it's like a mass mailing. We've got a couple guys in municipalities, and the municipality software, it's like their antivirus software, whatever, and this mass email comes out, and all of a sudden, it doesn't, and so I have to send it to them individually. It's no big deal, but anyway, spend the dollars, get a good platform. Get a good platform for your service directory. That's really important. It's got to be easy. It's got to be let me try this again. Able to easily manipulate, not only for you, but like for Jonathan said, for the people who are putting their input into it, okay? Ours is pretty good. The one we use is pretty good, but there's a little bit of an issue with them loading the photographs. Some people are really good at putting their own pictures in. Some people have to send them to me. It's no big deal, but again, spend the dollars. Last but not least, the way we look at this is full circle land management. Okay, this is full circle management for urban forestry, but kind of think of the same thing. Contacting the landowner, management plan, services, follow-up. It can be continuous. If these service providers are good, they can have a job forever. Nature is constantly changing and constantly growing. It's not a static thing. Invasive species control is not one and done. Habitat management is not one and done. Trail building is not one and done. Tree planting, you can go on. There is endless opportunities for this green service industry to grow with the projects that they establish. And so that's really important for, that's a good message for, to give them, is that there is endless opportunity because nature is always changing. That's it. Any questions?
Is this slideshow going to be in the mix here available? Can we see it and show it around?
Yeah, yes.
We'll give you credit,
Yes.
so you keep your name on it.
No, that's okay, I don't care. Put your name in there, what the heck? Go ahead.
So for your directory, if I'm a service provider, I enter the information in there, and do you have to vet that a little bit, or does it?
Good. I am the keeper of the gate. Yes, because every once in a while, and it happened when we first started, I would get a company from China, like who makes beds, or and I've had a couple that have been really squirrely, and I'm like, nah, click, delete. Yeah, I am the keeper of the gate.
Kind of in that realm, have you had any trouble with subpar or substandard performance to?
You know what? I think right at the get-go, there's that ever wonderful statement. Here's the service providers. We have, there's no endorsement from the Virginia Department of Forestry about their services, their fees, or I don't want to say their ethical nature, but yeah. But no, the answer is no. We haven't had anybody call on, what do you got that guy in there for? Go ahead.
What platform do you use
for
to keep
the directory? I'm trying to think. I think it is called Joomla, maybe? You familiar with it? Yeah. You've heard of it? Yeah. I think that's what it is. Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'd be done, Jonathan. Wait, from the fellow Boilermaker in the rear.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, a little slow.
That's all right.
I just found this email, just as a point of interest. I asked Joe last year for kind of what was the change up in additions to that directory. And there were 19 businesses added in the year. Were small parcel management, were small parcel management, which is great. That's probably, wood crafters, that's very defined. Portable sawmillers, you have one or you don't. A kiln operator, you do it or you don't. But to see 6, and that was the largest of the additional categories. So it's growing, and I'm really, really thankful. We've been pushing on this for so long, and Joe made it happen.
Yay, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
We made it happen.
No.
Go team.
Okay.